The main reason Trump wants now the base in Afghanistan, um, my sources have said that effectively Saudi Arabia said the U.S. is not allowed to use their bases anymore to defend Israel.
Mm.
We have offices there in UAE, and professional Egyptians that are in the industry there, their passports are not being renewed, and Egypt is they're going to have to return to Egypt. And the thing is that Egypt is preparing to draft as many men as possible. They're all preparing for war at this stage.
You're watching CapitalCosm. My name is Danny. It is September 22nd, 2025, and today we've got legendary forecaster. It's Martin Armstrong. Martin, thank you so much for coming on the show, my friend.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. Nice to see you.
Yeah, likewise, Marty. I mean, we always talk for quite a while before we hit record, and we get a little caught up in our discussions. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Let's take it from the top. What are some of the key threads out there that should be that the average person, the average investor should be paying attention to? And there's lots of stuff going on. A couple of weeks ago, we got a memo from France saying to prepare the hospitals for mass casualties. Is that a sign of troop deployment going into Ukraine? Is that a sign of the war coming into Europe? You've got this new Pakistan, Saudi Arabia defense pact deal. And then shortly thereafter, you've got the U.S. You've got Trump calling for the reinstatement of the U.S. Air Force Base in Bagram in Afghanistan. Could it be a coincidence? Could it not be a coincidence? So many different things to get into. I'll let you kick it off where you think is most relevant. What do you see going out there? What's on your radar screen?
Well, I think Israel's attack on Qatar was brain dead. It has brought together all the Arab countries, and Pakistan, etc. The main reason Trump wants now the base in Afghanistan, my sources have said that effectively Saudi Arabia said the U.S. is not allowed to use their bases anymore to defend Israel.
Mm.
We have offices there in UAE, and professional Egyptians that are in the industry there, their passports are not being renewed, and Egypt is they're going to have to return to Egypt. And the thing is that Egypt is preparing to draft as many men as possible. They're all preparing for war at this stage. Pakistan suddenly coming in with Saudi Arabia. It was just, a brain dead decision to attack Qatar that brought everybody else together.
So what about the UAE? Is the UAE going to be involved in the war as well?
I'm hoping not. They have a lot. The main reason we've been there for so long is that their main policy has been to establish UAE as the new Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they end up in war, they're going to lose that status, the same way as Britain lost it by going into World War I. And so far, I think they'll stay out, but let's see. But I think that's largely what we're kind of looking at this stage in the game. I mean, we have offices there in Dubai and a bunch of staff there, so where we cover all the Middle East for clients, and sometimes you just have to have feet, on the ground, boots on the ground, I guess, for even finance and advice, etc. And we got offices in China for the same reason. But then you really get the real story. You have to, meet clients in the eye and to, and deal with them. We deal with everybody around the world. So I think that's been mainly our advantage, because everybody will act out of their own self-interest, economically, even militarily, whatever. So I think that's kind of important.
Yeah, and tying the Qatar attack to its allies, one of its clear allies is Turkey, which has been making some noise as well. Are Turkey's threats to be taken seriously? How do you anticipate Turkey's role in all this?
Yeah, Turkey has the largest army in the Middle East. Erdogan, I think, as we were talking before, when an empire is rising, they only look forward. When an empire declines, then they look backwards at nostalgia. I've been in London, and you get a few drinks in them, and they go, "Well, the sun still doesn't set on the British Empire." I said, "Yeah, okay." Japan, I've been there. Again, you get a few drinks in them, they go, "The emperor's still God." Yeah, okay. It's Turkey. Erdogan has publicly said many times he wants to resurrect the Ottoman Empire. That included Israel. After the Hamas attack, he came out to support all the Arabs. What he wants to be, Turkey was basically the head of the Ottoman Empire. So they look backwards. That nostalgia, or whatever you want to call it. Europe is doing this with Russia. They think if they can conquer Russia, get to 75 trillion in assets, Europe will rise again like the Roman Empire and lead the world. I mean, it's always this, it sounds delusional, but it seems to be pretty much consistent with any empire that has fallen. It's like the good old days. We got to bring them back or whatever. Ronald Reagan was like, make America great again. It was the same thing. Looking back, Trump has done the same kind of thing. I don't necessarily agree with him. I mean, like, he was with the tariff stuff. But take that, for example. Before the income tax, the country was supported by tariffs. But we also didn't have all these socialistic programs. Social Security, all this stuff. The government was much smaller. So the amount of money that came in on tariffs, etc., could fund it.
Yeah. Now, do you anticipate them taking back that Air Force base in Afghanistan? Is the Taliban just going to let them take it back?
They may take it. Right now, I believe the neocons are kind of like, they have their fingers deeply in the White House. I was a little concerned. I believe, from my sources, were saying that Trump had even said we might end up in World War III over Ukraine last week. I don't know if that was out in the press or what, but then you had UK, Canada, Australia recognizing Palestine as a state. And Trump has basically threatened that he would get out of NATO. because they're going to do that. It's you're getting into a real quagmire here of relationships and who's on first. It's like you know the old Abbott and Costello routine. It's just getting to be a real mess. I mean, I have spoken to people in Washington, and I did warn them. I said, look, NATO is going to try and do a false flag to invoke an Article 5 to get us into war with Russia. And I thought they would think that that was like a conspiracy theory or whatever. And I was really surprised that they said to me, "We know you're right."
Wow.
Look, this is just NATO's out there telling the leaders over there, and this is why they're all so pro-war. Oh, we can beat Russia, and because we have 3.5 million soldiers, Russia has 1.5. Well, that number includes Americans. So this is the sales point, and they keep saying that they can walk into Moscow, no nuclear weapons, and they can just take all of Russia and then carve it up. I disagree with that. I said, if I got a gun, you're coming into my house and you intend to kill me, I'm going to shoot. I'm sorry. We're not. What people have to understand, this is not about Ukraine. This is a war of NATO against Russia. You had Kayla saying, "Oh, Russia's too big," and I mean, she's the head of foreign, agency there in the EU. Russia's too big, needs to be broken up. This is not about pushing Russia out of Ukraine. This is about Russia itself. You just had Ursula put in, what was the 19th sanctions against Russia. So why are you doing that? Does that mean the first 18 sanction events didn't work? It's just endless.
Yeah.
And Trump is he's playing an interesting game. He's basically told Europe that you want my support, you have to put in sanctions against Russia. I mean, against China. It's sanctions don't work anyhow, and they never have. This is just a neocon playbook. And this theory is, oh, well, if we hurt the Russian people enough, they will rise up and overthrow their own government. Please show me where this theory has ever worked even one time. When you're doing that, the people know who's doing it. And it only creates more anti-Americanism. In China, I mean, there was a very popular movie of war between the United States and China, and China wins. It was like the number one movie in China. It's fine, it's fiction, whatever, but it shows an anti-Americanism attitude, and that is not good for world peace.
But with China, there is this dependency between China and the United States. They're kind of symbiotic. Can either of those two countries really go to war against each other, given the symbiotic nature of their relationship?
You have these neocons. I spoke to somebody and Washington very close to Trump. This goes back 2 years ago. And they were being told that we would be at war with China, not Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm telling you right now, you're being bullshitted. This is propaganda. It's because they want you to pay attention to China, because I know what's going on in Europe. So if you look over here, look at the bird over there. Don't pay attention to the one on this side,
Mm-hmm.
And it took maybe 6 months. And then I got a call back, you're right. I said, I know I'm right. I'm just telling you, you're just being, bullshitted all the time. But that was the neocons telling them we're going to be at war with China.
Mm-hmm.
So that nobody paid attention to what they were doing to Russia on the other side. This is how Washington works. It's all, floating balloons and lies and deceits and maneuvering every which way from Sunday. So I get calls because I've been there. I know what the game is. It's not a conspiracy theory to me. So it's just, personally, I just find it disgusting. Kind of had enough of it after 50 years, really. I'm just waiting for the crash and burn. So maybe we can start over again.
Well, which one is going to crash and burn first? Is it going to be Ukraine, or is it going to be the war with Israel and Iran? Which one's going to happen? Which one's more imminent?
Both are, actually.
Okay.
Our computer, when I've said, look, we have the largest database of anybody in the world on everything from climate. You can go on our site, you'll see temperatures from New York back into the 1800s every day. We have two separate models, and a lot of people have called always about the war model, but then there's also the civil unrest model. We separate the two because the civil unrest leads to revolutions, and the other one leads to war between countries. All right?
Okay.
So they're two separate events. And we are getting closer towards the same, like, civil unrest we saw in the 60s, again, is rearing up. The recent assassination, the country's very divided. And you're seeing the same thing in Europe. They tried to outlaw the AfD party in Germany. Oh, they're a bunch of Nazis. Now number two party. And so you have this great divide, I call it, on the civil side. And it's everywhere. It's not just, on a few, spots. It's certainly in the United States. You're seeing the same thing in Canada, East versus West. And talk to people in the West, they really are considering trying to separate from the East. So you're seeing it everywhere, really. And that's what our computer's been warning about, that this is, one of the first times in over 300 years when both models are pointing to the same targets. Usually one is separate, you get, the civil unrest like in the 60s, but not international war, So when you step back and you look at this, it's not just Ukraine. Middle East is now the same problem. You go over to Asia, you got India versus Pakistan, Thailand versus Cambodia, North versus South Korea and Japan, China versus Taiwan. It's everywhere. Brazil will probably end up in a revolution again. They have been like going after Bolsonaro. When they went after Trump, this is the abuse of the rule of law for political gain. John Stuart Mills, in his great book on liberty, which I recommend reading sometime, one of my favorite quotes from that is he said, "We have yet to free ourselves from the stain of legal persecution."
Hey guys, quick pause from the podcast, but this is something I feel is really important to let you in on. Back in 2020, before I even started this channel, I was looking for an edge, a way to find the big opportunities most investors never even hear about. That's when I found Capitalist Exploits Insider. From day one, it felt like I suddenly had my own team of world-class market pros working for me, digging up trades all over the world, doing the deep research, and handing me ideas that had massive asymmetric upside. Stuff that I would never even think about. Since then, my gains with them have blown past the S&P and the NASDAQ, and it's honestly the single best newsletter I've ever subscribed to. And that's not me blowing smoke. That's for real. I've interviewed their publisher, Chris McIntosh, more times than I can count. In fact, my latest conversation with him is linked in the description box down below if you want to check that out, as well as a pinned comment. And every time, I'm reminded why I've stayed a member for years. Right now, they're offering a special $1,000 discount on the Insider subscription, but it's only for CapitalCosm viewers, so you're only going to get it by clicking the link down below in the description box or the pinned comment. You're not going to find this anywhere else. Click the link, lock it in, and start getting the same game-changing research I've been using since 2020.
Now, what they did to Trump, they've done to the former president in Pakistan, Marie Le Pen in France, same thing. Okay. Brazil going after Bolsonaro, sentencing him for 27 years. They're using law. They tried that in Germany against the AfD. All right. They're using the pretense of law to impose criminal sanctions on an opponent so they can't run against them. Same thing's happening in Romania. You're going after, everywhere. So this goes hand in hand with the civil unrest. When you start doing this sort of stuff, it's getting close to turning out the lights, and start over. Read Charles Dickens, his book Bleak House. He opens it up, how corrupt the court system has become. He says, suffer any wrong rather than come here.
Yeah. So you're saying that your models are concluding that we're heading both towards revolution and global war simultaneously? Is that right? How do these Western countries undergo a revolution while at the same time trying to fight a global war? If your house is a mess at home, how can you go to war then? Or does one come before the other?
One does come before the other. If you look at Germany, the Weimar Republic, all right, they overthrew the monarch, but 1918, after the war ends. Okay. Russia, same thing. The 1917 revolution followed World War I. So people are upset that, over the abuse of war, whatever. You in order to, even if you look at the United States, all right, there was a book published, I think it was 1934, called the Merchants of Death. And there was a Democratic Senator Nye, N-Y-E, and he started this investigation against DuPont and all this socialistic stuff. Oh, how much money did they make from the World War I? And he called them the Merchants of Death, arguing that they may have even lobbied to create the war, this kind of nonsense. And so that came out as this book. That then led to U.S. passed an act basically for isolationism. So then when World War II is coming, FDR could not get Congress to issue a declaration of war to go into Europe. And so that's when it's believed that he manufactured the war, forced Japan to attack Pearl Harbor. There's a big Senate investigation on that. It's not conspiracy theory. I published on our site, even 2 days before the Honolulu Tribune, there was a leak. It said, we're going to be attacked this weekend. He pulled the aircraft carriers out a couple days before. So then it turned into a big Senate investigation after the war. Did he know? Turned out we had broken the Japanese code, so we knew. They concluded, well, we're not entirely sure that FDR knew personally. Same thing with 9/11. They formed Homeland Security. If you look at it, well, some agencies had information but didn't share it. So it's always the same scenario, so to speak. But there was a major Senate investigation on did FDR deliberately create. He froze all the Japanese assets in the United States, cut off all their energy they were buying from us. When they said they were going to buy energy from somebody else, he threatened to put an embargo against them. And so they attacked Pearl Harbor. He did everything he possibly could do. Once we were attacked by Pearl Harbor, then he was able to enter the war with Europe. Before then, he could not get the U.S. into war. It was this isolationist idea, which all came from World War I.
So should we be on the lookout for false flags now? I mean, it sounds like you alluded to that with the Europeans, with the European angle.
Oh, yeah. Look, Putin's he's probably the smartest man at the table. And I even have the declassified documents from the Clinton administration, and Bill Clinton said the same thing. This guy's really smart. So he understands what the game is here. And just look up every red line he's put down. If you give them long-range missiles, that's it. They attack Moscow, he does nothing. I spoke to Ukrainian military. They were initially told just to go to the border. And then all of a sudden, the order to invade Russia and go into the Kursk region was actually coming from MI6. So, okay, we'll invade Russia. That will force him to do. He didn't do anything. Because he knows what the game is. If he attacks anything in NATO, they're going to start World War III. My concern is you had Zelensky try to assassinate him a couple months ago, sending drones after his helicopter or whatever. But they know what I know. If you remove Putin, it doesn't end the war. What you're going to get is a neocon, maybe like Medvedev,
Mm-hmm.
and who they want somebody who will respond emotionally. You came in to curse, that's it. I'm pushing the button. And that's what they want.
Mm.
Putin is extremely restrained. And that's what pisses them off. um, they're desperately. So, I mean, you take the drone nonsense in Poland. I mean, I've seen some of the. I mean, these things are held together with duct tape. Um, it's it's turned in. Them is a false flag, and there are some finance ministers and others of other surrounding governments that there's no indication anything was flying from Russia into Poland. But look, this is basically they're using that. Oh, we should do a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Really? So, in other words, we just shot down a drone from Russia. That he violated a no-fly zone. That's World War III. This is what they want. Look, I've said it before. Europe is economically collapsing. You just had UK and France finance ministers out there. They had to admit publicly that they were considering an IMF bailout. As you know, when they were creating the euro, they came to me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I warned them, you had to consolidate the debt. Otherwise, the euro will never be able to compete with the dollar. And as I've said before, Helmut Kohl took Germany into the euro unilaterally, didn't allow the German people to vote. Before he died, he even admitted he acted like a dictator, and he said if the German people voted, he would have lost 7-3. So I was told back in 98, look, we just have to create the euro first. We'll worry about the debts later. 26 years later, debts are still not consolidated. Now, why is that a problem? All right. We saw it with Greece. When Greece got into trouble in 2010, the traders, what do you do? Oh, who's next? Oh, Spain. Yeah, look at that. All right. Just read Herbert Hoover's memoirs, 1931. He talks about the contagion there as well, with all the sovereign defaults of Europe. He said Capo acted like a cannon on the deck of a ship in the middle of a tempest, shooting off in every which direction so fast they couldn't form a committee quick enough to do it. Now, France is the second largest economy. So this is even much serious than Greece.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say France basically gets in trouble, like Greece did, needs IMF or everything else. What are the traders going to do? Because the debt is not consolidated, the entire banking system of Europe has a cornucopia of debt from everybody. So then the traders are going to look and say, oh, which bank has the most French debt? Short that one. So it's going to turn into a real mess. All right. Whereas that can't happen in the United States. If California went bust, all right, they're going to, all right, who's next? Oh, maybe Illinois. They're not going to attack the Fed. Our banks, the reserve is federal debt, not state debt. So it's a completely different system. And this is what I've warned them about. I mean, look, I'm a trader. I'm not an academic. I'm not talking about theoretical, we're all equal, all this bullshit. It never works anyhow. I'm a trader. I know how capital actually moves. This is what we do.
So, taking the lessons of history in the past, when we saw capital flee Europe and come into the United States, that was a big part of the Pax America
Right.
beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, with the world going at war, where does the capital flee to? Does it come back to the United States? Does it go somewhere else?
No, it's still coming to the U.S. That's why you're seeing the stock market up, gold up. If you listen to the gold bugs, only gold was supposed to go up and the stock market is supposed to crash. Sorry, not happening. You see the dollar even rising. All right, fine. The euro made of high. It's the dollar's not collapsing. It's at the end of the day, when that first bullet is shot. We have a lot of major institutions in Europe. The ones that had gold, I told you better get the hell out of there. And they have. They have moved it to New York or Singapore or whatever. Just said, look, this is not my opinion. We just look at what they do. World War I, they shut down all the stock markets. You couldn't sell anything. All right. They will, when that first bullet is shot, they're going to clamp down with capital controls. They always do this. All right. And you have Europe pushing for the CBDC. They're saying by October, maybe January, I think more realistic, but let's see. They will cancel all the currency. You already have Spain saying you can't take out more than 3,000 euros in cash out of your account without government permission. They canceled their currency. Europe as a whole, including UK, even Canada canceled all its high denomination notes. So did Switzerland. U.S. dollar. One of the reasons it's reserve currency. We don't cancel the currency. And never have. So about 70% of the paper dollars are actually outside the United States.
So just to be clear, which currencies are going to be canceled by January? Are you talking about the euro or
the euro? Switzerland. It's debatable. All right. What the neocons have done, the countries that were neutral in World War II and won, Sweden, Switzerland, Sweden's joined NATO. They're no longer neutral. Switzerland, they confiscated, $8 billion of any money of a Russian. So they've lost their neutrality. There's no reason to treat Switzerland any better than Germany. Sweden, you just put all your people in the crosshairs. So you're probably looking at, once they do the euro, most others are going to be forced to do so as well. And then they're using the CBDCs. What I would be concerned about is that they will not just cancel the currency and force you into their CBDC. They may cancel all cryptocurrencies, anything that's a competition to them. Look, during the Weimar Republic of Germany, and the hyperinflation and all that, and because there was a revolution in 1918, and there were socialists even asking Russia to come take Germany. Anybody with money got it the hell out. You switched it to any other British pounds, whatever currency you could. So in 1933, when Hitler comes to power, he passed a law that said Germans were not allowed to have an account outside of the country. He was trying to bring all that money back. That's when Switzerland created the secret number accounts, 1934, to protect the Germans. So this is what they will do. So the smart money's been moving to the United States. That's why you see the stock market still going up and gold going up, retail, anybody with half a brain in Europe, all the talk shows, everybody's talking about war all the time. So the capital's been moving out.
And from the vantage point of an American, once all this stuff happens, will we be able to buy cryptocurrency? Will they cancel cryptocurrency here in America?
Probably not. No.
So that's mainly like confined within the European sphere.
See, Bitcoin is really a money laundering instrument. It got its volume coming out of China initially. The Chinese figured out, hey, I can buy Bitcoin here, I'll sell it in the United States, and I get the money out. So it didn't go through a bank wire or something like that. China then called in everybody that created, Bitcoin terminals. Canadians are using it. Europeans are using it. All right. They all use it for money laundering. I can buy it here and I can sell it over there. So I'm not sending a wire. So that is a threat to their CBDC. If you're trying to keep the money inside Europe and prevent people from fleeing, you're going to have to shut down Bitcoin.
Yeah. And so that's the European side of things. But what if America gets involved in a war with Iran or China or something like that? Will capital continue to flee into America, or will it flee out of America?
Probably still come here because it's not likely that we're going to be invaded. But what survived is basically anything that's tangible. So gold, real estate. I just had dinner with a real estate agent here locally, and said the same thing. Houses are just selling for cash. So it's people trying to get money off the grid. 2, 3, 4, 5 million. He said even up to 10 million cash.
With cash. Amazing.
So that's just, obviously they're trying to get money out of banks or countries or whatever. And particularly here in Florida, because after those hurricanes, some homes were flooded. And FEMA, which is a terrorist organization, in my opinion, so, you can't, we're regulating this. If it's more than 50%, you have to tear your house down. This is the bullshit today. So you're talking about older people that've been here for decades, retiring, and they can't fix their house. So they're selling them. So you have all these investors coming in, buying up everything they possibly can. And these people are being, pushed out of their home all because of FEMA. You're lucky I'm not president, because I would basically imprison probably most of them. I would say, you don't believe in due process, legal constitution? Neither do I. Off with his head. Next.
Well, okay. So why are we seeing a fleet of gold though? Why is the gold price hitting new all-time highs? Why is silver catching a bit as well? And could you see them eventually doing a gold revaluation? I don't think I've ever asked you this question. What's your view on a gold revaluation?
No. First of all, to do that, they have to admit that they made a mistake. Governments don't admit that they make mistakes. Um, as long, gold's going up because it's neutral. Um, Look, there's nonsense about de-dollarization. No, when they put the sanctions in on Russia and took them out of SWIFT, that was a red flag to every other nation. You do what we tell you, or we're taking you out. So that's what created BRICS.
Mm.
It wasn't that the dollar is back, not back, all this. It was geopolitical. All right, because you had Blinken even threatening China. You help Russia, and we'll do this to you. Really? Are you an idiot? You know, you just divided the entire world, financial system. But they're neocons. They only look at what's in front of their nose, and this is what I have to achieve. They don't understand if you achieve that, what's going to come. They do that with war. Look at Iraq. Or we have to remove Saddam. There's never, ever any consideration what comes next. You can look at Tony Blair's apology. It's on YouTube. He apologizes. He said, we thought we were freeing them from Saddam. We didn't realize we were going to subject them to more sectarian violence. ISIS is then created. No matter what you want to say about Saddam Hussein, Assad, or Gaddafi, whatever, those regions needed a dictator because they prevented at least everybody from killing each other. But
it's true.
They don't see themselves as all Syrian or Iraqi. They see themselves as Sunni versus Shiite versus Kurd. That comes first. That the same thing in the Balkans. It's all ethnically divided.
It's all tribal. Yeah.
So it's not this. Oh, we bring democracy to them. No, forget it. They've never had that. And it's. Look, even when JFK was running for president, you can look at it. A lot of those people, oh, the Pope's going to run the country. You still had that old resentment against Catholics that was a residual from the English Civil War of the 1650s. They still call Catholics in Britain, papes. I don't know what it is about Europe, but these old resentments are just there for centuries. We say I was called into Yugoslavia before it all broke up, met with the government. They said, oh, well, they killed 600 of us and threw us in a common grave. And I initially thought, oh, my God, really? I thought I missed something on the news. I said, really? When did this happen? Oh, about 700 years ago. I said, oh, okay, that one, it's, I do podcasts in Serbia, Croatia, and I mean, it's, I talk to all sides. I even appear on Russian TV. People go, oh, gee, why do you do that? Because, you should maybe read Sun Tzu. If you don't know yourself and you don't know your enemy, you're going to lose. You should listen to the other side because they're going to act according to what they believe. Simple as that.
And now our side or the other side, depending on how you want to look at it, there's this memo that was sent out. We talked about it multiple times on the show already, but I don't think I've ever mentioned this to you on air. But there's this leaked memo from France saying that to prepare their hospitals for mass casualties.
Oh yeah, now I mean, look, that's Europe-wide. I know for a fact the same thing in Germany and Netherlands.
Okay.
The French is just a leak. Okay, but the same directive has been throughout Europe. They are preparing for war. The big problem is you have NATO, which is basically telling all these world leaders we can defeat Russia. We have 3.4 million or 3.5 million troops. And they have 1.5. This is the way they're selling it. Of course, that includes America, which, but as if everybody, they can invoke Article 5, all 3.5 million are going to show up. And we're all going to walk across the border.
Yeah, and I would presume a large share of that military draft would fall under the immigrants that they brought in, right?
Oh yeah.
And I'm also presuming that they don't have much skin in the game or patriotism for any of those places to really like put themselves out there in
I
a
was
war.
on the phone with sources in Romania. They were told by the EU that they had to accept another 100,000. And for exactly that reason.
To draft them.
They think wrongly, and I've warned them. I said, look, there's a example from history. The Roman Emperor Valens, Attila the Hun was coming across Europe. The Goths, which were a Germanic tribe, they asked if they could come in for protection. He let them in. He trained them for the military. Build up my military. I'll use the Goths to defend against Attila the Hun. They got trained in all the U.S. and all the Roman tactics, etc. They go, oh, thank you very much. They turned around, waged war against the emperor, and killed him in battle. Look it up. Our word God comes from the Goths. It wasn't Latin. Latin is divus. All right. A lot of things we have are barbaric.
God comes from Goth.
Goth. That was their word for God. The Latin word for God is divus, divine.
Interesting.
So when you pick up the rug and you start looking at history a little bit, you begin to see how much things have changed and why.
How did the word Gothic then transmute to what it means today then? Because that's the farthest thing from God.
Gothic was Greek. Dorint. But the Latin word for God was divus, divine.
Fascinating. Well, Marty, I think that's all I got in the tank for today. I don't know if you have anything else you want to talk about, but if you do, go right ahead.
No, that's just getting to be a real mess. All I could say is I've been doing this for about 50 years. And in my personal opinion, this is, I think, the worst crop of world leaders I've ever witnessed. Like every idiot they could have found off the street, they put in to run these countries. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, they're just not there. They're just not intelligent.
Well, it's mainly in the West, right? Because in the East, you've got, I mean, think of them what you will, but Putin, Xi.
Oh no, they're very smart.
Yeah.
They understand. China, I can say, when I would do conferences or seminars in Europe, I would have, years ago, I would have to explain cycles. In Asia, it's part of their religion. All right, so they know they know China will surpass the United States. It will be their time. And they don't have to do anything about it.
Don't interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake, right?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think to a large extent, this is part of the problem with our neocons. I mean, I know some of them. I mean, Bill Crystal, his father started it. He even spoke at one of our conferences. I mean, um, I think they spent their whole life hating communists. You know, you had McCarthy and the Red Scares, all that stuff, for decades. And communism fell all by itself. And I think they're just pissed off they didn't get to shoot anybody. So why are we still mad at Russians? You know, NATO puts out this stuff that, oh, Russia wants to invade Europe. Why? You know, Khrushchev was really indoctrinated into Marxism. When he said, we're going to bury you, he really did believe that communism was the solution to evil capitalism. He didn't look at invading Europe economically to get something. It was philosophical. And so they still apply that to like Putin.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just different. I mean, there's nothing there. Europe has to buy its energy from Russia. Forget gold.
And isn't China taking a more nuanced approach by looking at capitalism in terms of stages? So I believe that one of the key takeaways that China saw in the collapse of the Soviet Union was that effectively Russia put the cart before the horse. They went straight to communism. They didn't allow capitalism to build out the industrial base for then communism to come in during late stage capitalism and take over the means of production. So is this what China is doing now, is allowing capitalism to flourish to at some later point in time to become nationalized, even more so nationalized?
No, they don't seem to be. I mean, I've been to both. And I would say that the Russian version of communism came from Stalin, that he was paranoid. So he was worried what you said to your wife. China, they had the tall poppy syndrome. They don't care what you say to your wife, but you stick your head up and start talking to everybody else that gets cut off. All right. So I think that honestly, that the difference that I saw was that China was able to boom very rapidly because they did not embrace Marxism all the way. Whereas in Europe, you know, they outlawed religion. There were Stalin. If you really look at it, Lenin was copying the United States. The Soviet Union and each individual republic would retain its sovereignty. And he even wrote a letter saying, do not let Stalin succeed me. And Russians, many believe that Stalin poisoned Lenin so he could grab power. And then what did he do? Reversed it all. He consolidated all the power into Moscow. No independent, you know, republics. So I think that just my observations, that I think that's what Stalin was so concerned about what you thought. He had this great purge. If you thought you were intelligent enough to wage a revolution against them, you're dead. Where China didn't do that. So I think China, when communism fell, the people, humanity itself was still intact. So they rose from the ashes very quickly. Whereas Russia, um, you know, people didn't really know entrepreneurial stuff, things of this nature. You had Harvard going in there trying to, okay, we'll create shares and give them, to the people, and you know, and you had other crooks in there buying up the shares at cheap prices so they could make a profit. So Russia was really exploited a lot.
I see.
China, you didn't really get that so much. When I was called in to China after the 80s, 97 Asian currency crisis, I was taken off to this one facility, and they were downloading everything from the internet. And I went in actually to help them become capitalists.
To understand the concept of price discovery.
Yeah, they were monitoring everything, but they were not interfering. There were actually 249 varieties of tea, and I was like shocked that there really was that many. And I had to answer questions like, well, why is this tea selling for like $1 here but $2 over there? I said, well, where is it coming from? I said, here, well, first you have transportation costs. Oh, okay. Yeah. I said, then somebody will pay more for this tea versus that tea if they like it more. Oh, okay. At that level, it was fascinating for me to watch. But at the same time, I could see why communism failed. That tea that's $1 here under equality had to be $1 over there, even if it cost you $10 to get it there. That's why communism failed. Oh, we all have to be equal. Okay, that sounds nice, but it doesn't work that way. Okay, you're next in line. Here's a broom. Go sweep the floor. But that was the whole problem with communism. We're individuals. Somebody can, be a great quarterback in a football game and get $30 million. I don't think you want to give me $30 million to throw a football in the Super Bowl. It's we all have different talents. This whole idea of we're equal in rights, not materially. And Marx basically said, "Oh, you got $10 more than me. That's not fair."
Yeah, with respect to productivity, we're not interchangeable.
Right. Exactly.
Everyone has their own productive value that they can offer to society in their own way. So, Marty,
some people don't want to work, and some people do.
Yeah, and that's the problem with communism, is that it just looks at people from a very atomized way, as if you're just a number, and
you're just a number, a robot. That's it. And that's why that did not work. And all this nonsense, equality, this stuff. Sorry, materially, it does not work. If there's, only 10 people that can be a brain surgeon and 1,000 people that can sweep the floor, I think one gets paid more than the other.
Can't argue with that. Well, Marty, for people who want to see more of your work, where can they find you?
Go to armstrongeconomics.com. We try to keep it as an open forum. You don't have to put in emails or anything else. We don't even sell advertising.
Excellent. We'll have the link to that down below. So check it out, guys. And if you got value out of this podcast, drop us a like and comment. Go, Marty, go in the comment section. If you agreed or disagreed, either way, let me know. I do, in fact, read all the comments, good or bad. So drop me your thoughts down below. I will be responding to a small handful of them. I can't get to all of them, especially with a Martin Armstrong interview. You guys just flood the comments and the views. So, and also don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an episode. And by liking, subscribing, commenting, doing all the YouTube stuff that we often ask you to do, it does help and push this video up in the algorithm. And even though it may not seem like much, it does go a long way. So that's one way to support the channel. And it's free. But if you want to take it up a notch and support me monetarily, become a paying member to my Substack at CapitalCosm.substack.com to get all my interviews early, ad-free, and uncensored, and the chance to ask all my guest questions down the line. So with all that said, I appreciate your time, guys. I will catch you later. Bye.